Leaders are gathering in Phnom Penh for the ASEAN Leaders Summit, which opens tomorrow. Now, it's the first to be held in person since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. US President Joe Biden and Chinese Premier Keqiang will also be attending the regional talks. Now, the theme of the summit is addressing challenges together. Post-COVID-19 recovery, the crisis in Myanmar and the war in Ukraine, as well as geopolitical tensions between Washington and Beijing are high on the agenda. May Wong joins us live now from Phnom Penh for more on this. May, the crisis in Myanmar, it's going to be high on the agenda. Many ASEAN leaders, they're upset that the military government has not implemented the 5-point consensus plan. There's a lot of frustration over that. What can we expect from the bloc's discussions on this issue of Myanmar?
The Myanmar crisis will most definitely dominate talks among the ASEAN leaders, but I would say don't expect too much because it has been almost 2 years since the Myanmar military staged a coup to take over the country. And since then, at least 2,300 people have been killed. 14 million people are in need of humanitarian aid. 1 million people actually displaced. And so instead of seeing an improvement in the situation over the months, in fact, ASEAN has seen the crisis deteriorate. And one thing they've not been able to do with the Myanmar military is to get the military to comply. The ministers have met time and again, but you must understand that ASEAN will never take any bold actions. In fact, in this final summit, it's understood that a leaked document shows the fact that the ministers are going to propose a list of 11 recommendations to try and resolve this crisis. However, I had a look at that list, and that list really pretty much maintains status quo in terms of how they want to treat the military. And in that list as well, one of the points shows the fact that ASEAN will be safer and stronger with ASEAN. So you can just bet on the fact that ASEAN will not suspend Myanmar, will not kick Myanmar out of this bloc, as many people have actually asked for. In fact, Cambodia, who is chair of ASEAN, has actually said that even Superman will not be able to help resolve this crisis. And when I spoke to an analyst, the analyst told me that even someone mightier than Superman will not be able to help at this stage.
Blaming game is easy, but looking for a solution is not easy. So this is the crisis that required all ASEAN member states and dialogue partners to work together to find solutions. And one chairmanship, two chairmanship, perhaps not enough to solve Myanmar issue. You have to understand the kind of limited role of ASEAN. ASEAN is not a god, you know. Even a god, I don't know whether God can find solution for Myanmar. But ASEAN is not a god. ASEAN is not a court to make judgments or anything. But ASEAN is a platform for dialogue, trust building, and try to find solution to Myanmar crisis.
May, some high-profile figures from outside the bloc are going to be in attendance as well, including President Joe Biden, as well as the Chinese Premier Keqiang. How can we expect them and other world figures, for that matter, to engage ASEAN?
Other leaders aside from US and China are expected to be here: Japan, South Korea, India, but all eyes will be on these two giants of the US and China because of the tensions that are going on between the two. China, for example, has come with Premier Keqiang, although Premier Keqiang is outgoing, but he brings with him China's message, and that is China remains a very staunch friend, a very firm friend, and also a very, very reliable friend that has never deserted Southeast Asia. In fact, China is ASEAN's largest trading partner for 13 years. And also in 2020, ASEAN became China's largest trading partner. So you can just see not just the economic relationship that's going on, but the diplomatic as well as the political relations, with a lot of inside information being shared and also a lot of communication channels that are kept open. And China has also told ASEAN the fact that this is Asia's moment and do not let others interfere with what is going on in this region. On the flip side of it, obviously you have Americans coming in here because President Joe Biden is trying to pick up the pieces from the ex-president of Donald Trump, because Donald Trump had actually put Asia as a very, very low priority. He never attended the Southeast Asian meetings for 3 consecutive years. But with Joe Biden's physical presence this time around, President Biden only wants to show Asia that the U.S. is back. The U.S. wants to bring about this new era of relationship between the U.S. and ASEAN, and hopefully convince ASEAN that this is going to be the America's way forward, and ultimately also elevate this relationship by forging this comprehensive strategic partnership in order to make sure that the U.S. is here to stay, and the U.S. is trying to balance this dominance coming from China.
May, thank you for setting the scene for us in Phnom Penh there ahead of the ASEAN summit. May Wong there in Cambodia.